again. So, this is for those who have been asking just about my journey and my specific situation. A lot of times I get asked via messages, whether it's a comment or a personal message, and sometimes it's really hard to write down everything that I've been through because it's been a lot. So I figured I can make a video and just let you guys know, like, kind of what I've had to endure, especially because I know that I've had a couple people here and there kind of question the authenticity of my outcome, and that's fine. I completely understand. It's sometimes really hard to believe, but here we go. So, November 2015, I was laying in the bed with my son. We were watching cartoons, and I was feeling around for some reason. I think I put my hand in my bra, and I felt a small lump there. At the time, I had very big breasts. I was a 34 double D, and so it was a little odd. So the first thing I did was I picked up the phone and I called my mother. My mother has been in the medical field for, almost 30 years. So, the first thing I had to do was give her a call and say, hey, I found this lump. What's going on? She let me know that sometimes, it could just be from your period or whatever the case may be. So, not to really worry about it just yet. Not until, it stays a little bit longer. So, a couple of days later, I was at my stepsister's house, and she is a nurse practitioner, and so is her husband. So, I had them basically take a look, and he felt the lump as well. They were both able to feel it, and he, advised me the same thing. It could be from your period. Give it about a week. If it doesn't go away, you need to get it checked out. So, a couple weeks later, wasn't going away. By this time, I had just started increasing in weight for whatever reason, and my weight was increasing fairly fast. So, I went ahead and attempted to go get it checked out. This was that was November I found it. This was December starting. Yeah, December I started getting it checked out. And, December, January, February, the doctors would even look at me. They wouldn't even give me any type of ultrasound or a scan. It was, you're too young for this. It's probably just a mastitis. It's probably just from your period. I think you're fine. Let me go ahead and prescribe you antibiotics. There's no reason for us to think anything else. That went on for about 3 months. So around March, 2016, I basically, went into the ER. By this time, the lump had actually gotten bigger, and it was starting to hurt. One of the physicians that had looked at me and not scanned me had basically said, oh, it's because the antibiotics work. That's why it got bigger and harder, which didn't make sense. Even his CNA looked at him like, what are you talking about? So I went to the ER, told him that it had gotten bigger, that it was hurting. An ultrasound was done. The tech basically came and told me that they saw no fluid in it. So they were basically, confirming that it wasn't a cyst. Later that night, one of the physicians on call came to me while in the ER and said that I think that we, you need to get this biopsied ASAP. We strongly believe this may be cancer. By that time, I had just started working at a new job at this hospital, and this hospital is a very big hospital, and it's a hospital that is its own insurance as well as just annoying as hell. So I was able to, around, I want to say, the end of April, beginning of May, get it biopsied, and just to kind of see what's going on. And they also found another lump under my armpit. So they biopsied. It was an ultrasound guided biopsy. So, needless to say, beginning of May came, had my appointment to go over the results, and the general surgeon that I seen basically sat me down and said, I'm sorry, but you have stage 2, possibly stage 3, triple negative breast cancer. I was 27 years old at the time, and by myself getting these results. So that was fun. The moment he said that, I told him, no chemo, no radiation. I opted into the surgery. He said absolutely not. So we got into a little tidbit about that. I told him surgery first. I only want to do the surgery. He said, you need to do chemo. We need to come with a plan. I told him no. And then he finally said, okay, we're going to do he wanted to do chemo so that he can do a lumpectomy. And my thing is look, it's there, take it out. If it's affected anywhere else, especially because it's in the lymph node, if it's affected anywhere else, I'd rather just not have that tissue there so it can come right back. Just take my breasts. That's it. Like, that was not up for discussion. But aside from wanting to do the lumpectomy, their thing is you're too young to have both breasts removed. And my thing is, I'm too young to have both breasts removed, but I'm also too young to die. So let's go ahead and just get rid of both of them. We have no problem with that. We can correct the issue later. So that was in May. It took about 6 weeks of us going back and forth. I met with, started doing tests, met with the nurses and the oncologist and everything. And again, this was the general surgeon that I was talking to most of the time. The oncologist that I met with, she was, 6 years under her belt. She really didn't have much to say. The few appointments that we had, she just really repeated everything the general surgeon said. And I would tell her no. And then she would say, okay, that's it. We'll just make another appointment and try again later. So he initially was only going to do a unilateral. I opted into the bilateral. So, and his first response was, I don't have time for that. And I don't feel like you need it. I told him that was not a choice of his, and that because, I was employed and my insurance was fully covering it, that is what I'm asking for, and that's what needs to be done. So he agreed, made me his last patient of that day. And I was relieved. We basically set it up, and I had my surgery done June 2016, a week before my 28th birthday. So went in, had the bilateral mastectomy. I was, I had a conversation with the nurse before the surgery to ensure that it was a nipple-sparing bilateral mastectomy. She said it was. Went in for my, went and got my surgery. The next day he came in to try to discuss chemo with me again. I said, absolutely not. He kind of threw a little bit of a fit. I'm obviously leaving out a lot of details just because I don't want this to be like a 10-minute video. But, then a couple weeks later came back for a follow-up and found out that not only did he take both of my nipples, but he cut me from my collarbone all the way down. As you can see, this was actually much bigger. It's been revised twice already. So he just wasn't happy with the fact that I said no to chemo. And just so to clear it up, the reason why I was saying no to chemo and radiation is I hadn't done my research, and I wanted to do my research. This hospital had a very very high mortality rate. Their survival rate, I think, was like 30%. And I just didn't want to take any chances with that. And also, I wanted to be completely educated on the entire situation and not go in blindly. And they did try to use scare tactics. They tried to use my son against me. They tried to use every possible way to let me know that if I didn't listen to them, that I was going to die. And my main question to them was, aside from all the other questions that I had for them that they couldn't answer, was, everybody's saying what's going to happen to me, what could happen to me if I don't listen to you. But nobody's talking about what could happen to me if I do listen to you. And that's also important. So they definitely didn't like me at all. That's fine. Hey, look at me now. So July 2016, my son and I had a secret talk, and we picked up and we moved across the country to Florida. We left California and moved across the country to Florida. I had some friends here in Florida, and I also found out that the city that we were coming to not only had a Mayo Clinic, but it had an MD Anderson, which are two of the top cancer treatment centers in the nation. And I was excited, so we came here. July. I found a job within a week, got some insurance, got PPO. Found an oncologist at MD Anderson by December 2016, met with her, and she, went over my case and everything and came back and basically said that she wasn't going to scan me. Now, mind you, because I said no to chemo, they had basically refused to talk to me about radiation, refused to scan me, refused to talk to me about reconstruction. He basically, said, I want to talk to you about chemo. I said, I told you no to chemo. And he said, okay, then we don't need to discuss anything else. And he threw his little fit and walked away. So when I met with the oncologist at MD Anderson, she basically came back and said, you don't show any signs of physical illness, so there's no need for me to scan you until June 2017. So I took that and went with it. against my better judgment because I knew better. By this time, I was trying to do anything I could holistically to help myself, but I really wasn't too strict on it or keeping up with it, which was the biggest mistake that I could have made. So what happened? So March 2017, I had gotten everything together so that I could basically go have reconstructive surgery at PRMA Plastic Surgery in Texas. So, I went to have my surgery. I had my pre-op with him when I got there, the day before my surgery, and he felt this area right here and basically advised me that it was a little tough. And he goes, and I don't know if it's scar tissue. He goes, but sometimes it could be cancer. He goes, but I won't know until I open you up. So went in the next day for surgery. Something was off, just felt off to me the entire time that I was there. And lo and behold, 2 hours later, I woke up and he said, we had to abort the surgery. We opened you up and we found more cancer in your pectoral muscle. So he immediately contacted my oncologist, got in touch with her. She did not seem too urgent about the situation, or there was no sense of urgency. Let me correct myself, about the situation. And that was basically it. Like, I had to get back on a plane and come back home to face the reality. So I flew home and basically my oncologist set me up to have my PET scan and see what's going on. So about a week, my oncologist didn't set me up to have a PET scan for a couple of weeks. My primary care physician was not having it. She said, absolutely not. You need to have one ASAP. And she's actually the one, my primary care physician is actually the one who set me up with everything. She set me up with the scan, and I had my PET scan, and they found there were a cluster of tumors here in my pectoral muscle, in the lymph nodes, a cluster of tumors here in my brachial plexus, in the lymph nodes, and then here, right in the lymph nodes, in the middle of my lungs. There was no evidence of disease anywhere else in my body but those 3 areas. So, now it was working on a treatment plan. By this time, my primary care physician was pretty much over my oncologist, and she advised me to go get a second opinion at Mayo. Well, I was able to get into Mayo. I got in for a second opinion a week later, and it just so happened that I had actually been suffering from a headache that entire week right after the PET scan. So when I went in for my consultation with Mayo Clinic, she had asked, if anything had been going on. I said, I've actually had this kind of dull headache for this last week since I've had my PET scan. I'm assuming it's just stress, but it's just really bothering me. So she immediately got on the phone with my primary care physician and said, I am not comfortable with the fact that she has just said that she has had a headache for a week. We need a brain MRI now. So they did a brain MRI a couple of days later. That day, my primary care physician called me in, and she basically told me that we found a 2.5 centimeter tumor in your brain, and you now have stage 4 cancer. She was crying while she said this. So of course I was devastated. I didn't know what to do. This was, a lot for me. Thank God Mayo acted quickly. As soon as they got the results, they set me up with 2 full days of appointments and scans and blood work, and within 3 days had me in to do a craniotomy. And my neurosurgeon was the first person to tell me that in situations like this, you only have a year to live with or without treatment. Gotta love doctors. So by this time, I was set up with an oncologist there at Mayo Clinic, and, she gave me hope. We talked about clinical trials. We talked about integrative medicine. We talked about everything. She was amazing. And then they so let me backtrack. They did an MRI, a brain MRI the day after my craniotomy, came back clear, no residual disease, no other lesions. They were good to go. So met with my oncologist and, was still doing scans and everything like that. They were trying to figure out whether or not they were going to do a whole brain radiation or just radiate the area of which the lesion was in. And so I had gotten a second opinion at University of Florida Health for the radiation. One of my breast cancer sisters actually is the one who told me to look into them. So I did. And I want to thank you, by the way, for doing that. I really, really appreciate you giving me that information. So went in for a second opinion, and they were actually the proton therapy institutes. I was praying that I could get proton therapy instead of like standard radiation. Anyways, I met with the doctor there, and she was amazing. She had so many concerns, so many questions, and was basically like, look, we need to, whole brain radiation can genuinely cause so many issues for you in the long run, and I just don't think we need to go that far. She was like, I think that we need to do one form of, heavy dose radiation straight to that spot, and and that's it. So, went back to Mayo Clinic. Lo and behold, they came and they, decided they wanted to do that was the treatment plan they wanted to go with. So we did one form of radiation, and that's it. Well, then, I had met with I had my craniotomy in April 2017, So April 2017 was when I had my craniotomy. So May is when I went to go speak to my newly assigned oncologist from Mayo Clinic about my treatment plan. And I had been doing research. I had been researching. And she came with a treatment plan, and she was just like, basically we're going to be doing low dose weekly Taxol and indefinitely. And I had a really big problem with that. I just told her there's no way that I'm going to be coming in here every single week and sick for the rest of my life. Sick, tired, bald for the rest of my life. Like, you're crazy. No, not going to happen. Nope. So she just was like, I don't think you understand the severity of your situation. And it's like, no, I do, but that's not going to happen. So God makes no mistakes. And the reason why I say this is because I really believe that like everything happens for a reason. So I completely forgot it that I had ordered this book some weeks before, and I wasn't even keeping track of it because I was so tied up in everything else. And so the day that I got back home from discussing my treatment plan, this book pops up on my doorstep, and it was Surviving Triple Negative Breast Cancer. So I start looking through it, just kind of skimming the pages, and I come up on the page that talks about the treatments that are administered for the specific stages, and it did not match anything of what she said. And I was pissed. So I immediately called the nurse, started asking the nurse questions. The nurse said, I think it's just best that you come in and you speak to the oncologist yourself, and so I made an appointment to go talk to her because I had questions. So by this time, I'm now doing more research and writing down because I have way more questions now. By this time, I had to go down to Miami. My cousin was setting me up with his prayer group so that we can do like a healing, anointing thing. And so I was just really still upset about the conversation, about learning what I did. So I called UF Health and spoke to the radiation oncologist that I had a second opinion with, because she was, obviously, just so aggressive with the way that she wanted to do things. And I told her what was going on. Not only was she shocked that I still hadn't had radiation to my brain yet, I was going to have it the week after, but she was just like, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't seem right as far as the treatment plan is concerned. Let me connect you with my colleague because I think you could really, really benefit from him. And Dr. Julie Bradley, you have no idea how much of a blessing just those words were, and what you connecting me with Dr. Guthrie did. Like, it's amazing the fact that I even found you guys in the first place. So I was set up with an appointment with her colleague at UF Health and for a couple of weeks out. And at this time, I was also waiting for radiation to start, which was going to be the next week. And I was also waiting for the appointment that I had with my oncologist at Mayo. So I finally got my radiation treatment. And then I went ahead and went to my oncologist at Mayo, which was the appointment that we had scheduled. And I had these questions for her. Why aren't you being aggressive? Like, why aren't you trying to hit it with everything you have? Like, what's going on? This is what I found. And she told me there's research that has shown that one chemo treatment is just as effective as two. Excuse me? That doesn't even make sense. Then she went on by saying, this is how we treat stage 4. This is what we do for stage 4. This is basically protocol. And she slapped that big old number on my forehead and said, that like, we're doing it because this is protocol. That's it. So we got into a little argument, a little disagreement. And she basically told me, if you don't trust my clinical opinion, you are more than welcome to go somewhere else. So I said, that's great. Screw you. You can cancel all of my appointments. We're done. And I walked out. I had already started the integrative medicine, basically meeting with the nutritionist, the acupuncturist. So thank God that my insurance allowed me to keep at least that portion so I can keep with the holistic part. And the mindfulness coach too. She was really, really helpful. So the next week I went and met with with the oncologist at UF Health. I'd actually also made an appointment with MD Anderson when I was down in Miami because I wanted that other opinion. So I made the appointments on the same days. So the day that that morning I went to go meet with MD Anderson, and MD Anderson basically said that they agreed with Mayo Clinic, and that's how they treat stage 4, and that's protocol. So I went over to UF Health, and it was just a completely different tone. So I met with a doctor, crazy, quirky, older gentleman from Georgia, and he said, look, people think that when you have triple negative that it's a death sentence, and it's not. He said people think that triple negative, you just have triple negative and that's it, but they don't realize that there's actually so many different subtypes that help us to pinpoint maintenance. He said, with your specific situation, I would definitely do the Taxol, but I would have to mix it with the Carbo, because studies have shown that triple negative not only responds really well to chemo, but it responds really well to platinum-based chemo, which is what the carboplatin is. So I would put you on that for 12 weeks. And, then we would go from there. We would find your subtype so we can figure out a maintenance, so on and so forth. He said, you being on chemo indefinitely is the traditional way of treating it. However, our current research has shown that, you being on chemo indefinitely, he goes, it'll make you sick. You will forever be sick. He goes, and not only that, but the thing about that is, he goes, studies have found that for every single chemo that you do, he goes, it stops working at some point. So for every single chemo that we put you on, we have to switch to a different one once that one stops working. And the problem with that is every single time we have to switch you chemo, those chemos become less and less effective, because all the disease is doing is evolving. It's becoming immune to these therapies, and then that's it. He goes, so no, that's not an option for you. You're too young for that. We're not going to go that route. This is the route that we're going to. My prayers were answered. I told him immediately, you're hired. And we started the process, and he was very aggressive. I want to start her on chemotherapy now, but boom, boom, boom. He goes, I don't care what the scans say. I don't care. I want to make sure that we do everything that we possibly can to get you back to our normal life. That meant everything to me. And throughout my entire chemotherapy treatments, he always had positive things to say. The tumors that were here, my muscle was actually protruding. By the second treatment, it was like my shoulder was back to normal, like they were gone. He was just he educated me on everything. He was just very, very, cool, calm, collected. And just let me know, like, we're trying to hit a home run. Like, his words exactly were, I'm trying to hit a home run with you. I think I can really get you to remission and get you back to a normal life. And he just will never understand how much I appreciated the fact that he said that, the fact that he did that, the fact that he fought with me, because I went through so much and was just basically told that my life was over, to find this person who said, no, I don't believe that to be true. And it's so hard, and it's so easy to get scared into saying, yes, okay, do whatever you can, and not knowing what's going to happen, and just having these people slap a number on your forehead and say, this is protocol. Like, it's so hard and so scary. And so I thank God that he made me as stubborn as he did, and he brought me to this man, because who knows where I would have been had I not went and told everybody to go fuck themselves. Who knows where I would have been? My son might not have me to this day. So after, 10 out of 12 treatments of Carbo and Taxol, also 6 weeks of radiation, I completed chemo in June, July, August, September. In September, what? It was September, October. When did I complete chemo? Yeah, I completed chemo in September. Started radiation in October. Completed radiation around November. This was all like the middle of the months. And, started on Xeloda in December. And I had a PET scan mid chemo because I told him, we need to make sure this is working because I'm not going to let you pump me with this for the next 12 weeks and then find out after 12 weeks it never worked. So by the third treatment, I had a PET scan and a brain MRI. Everything came back clear. He actually told me I was no evidence of disease then. But I did not declare myself in full remission, which is the words that he used, until this month when I had my PET and brain MRI and it came back completely clean. So this is my story. I started this journey at 27. At 28, I was told I had a year to live with or without treatment, and I am now 29, will be turning 30 in June, and I have been told that I have reached full remission for stage 4 triple negative breast cancer, which is the most aggressive breast cancer that is out there. So I want to thank God and thank my team at UF Health, thank my family and friends for busting their ass and doing everything they can to help me from 3,000 miles away, and thank my prayer warriors and just anybody who was there for me. And just, again, I want to thank God for making me stubborn and bringing me to these people, because had I not asked any of these questions, again, who knew where I could have been? Thank you, UF Health. You saved my life. But most of all, thank you to Dr. Julie Bradley of the Proton Therapy Institute at UF Health and her wonderful team. And thank you, Dr. Troy Guthrie of UF Health and his amazing team of beautiful nurses and just wonderful staff who made sure that I always had a blanket, I always had 2 waters, and I always had Cheez-Its, and my phone was always plugged in. And that, when the couple of times that I brought my son, that they helped me find accommodations for him. And, if I needed the help, they actually genuinely treated me like a person and not a patient. And I can't thank these teams enough. So thank you. And there's my story. Happy Saturday. Well, have a good weekend. Bye.